Today, we're looking at a green ink by Atramentis, Edgar Allan Poe, Emerald Green. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. There's timestamps down below so that if you want to skip around, you can, but if you got the time, check out the entire video. You can follow me over on Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Jinhao 51A with a fine nib. I used it to write for a day. I then used it to take the notes for this video. In order to have some standardization while looking at writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper, although there are additional writing samples that occur much later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this up in sample form, so it comes in a vial something like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and it does offer some shading. If you look at the Atramentis, you see that the middle of the word is certainly lighter than the extremities of the word, but the E is darker than the M and the N right next to it. So there is some shading within this writing. Now the extra fine is about the same tone as the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, the shade shows up much better. Thus starts light and gets dark. Quick starts dark, gets light, gets dark. Brown goes from dark to light. No feather spread, halo sheen. I went through the shade 9 seconds, lost myself in my head there. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine, it just shows off more of the darker tones. Medium has no feather spread, halo sheen, very nice shading going on. Brown starting dark, getting light, getting dark on the very end of the N. But Fox starting light and getting very dark. Over goes from light to dark. 16 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show us some color variation in far left to far right, and we do get it in the writing. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, it has some shade spots. Look at how the starts light and gets dark. Brown starts dark and gets light. It starts light and gets dark. Over goes from light to dark. 11 seconds to dry. Now medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 23 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, although we do get some in the writing of the extra fine. And Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, some very nice shading going on. Atramentis starts dark, gets lighter, gets darker. Allan starts a little lighter, gets darker, gets a little lighter. So there is some shading within that writing. The extra fine is a little lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, some very nice shading going on. Quick starts dark, gets light, gets dark again. Fox goes from darker to lighter. Over starts from dark or from light to very dark to a mid-tone to very dark again. 10 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, not quite as dark as the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, it does have some shading, it's just much more subtle. In quick, when it goes from dark to light to dark, it goes from a dark to a mid to a dark tone. Brown goes from dark to mid-tone to dark. So we're not getting the light, but we're getting mid-tones, and 17 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us color variation. More is shown in the extra fine than is shown in the medium, but it is there in both of the writings. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. It's a turquoise, and it's hard to say if it's blue leaning or green leaning, but it's a very light turquoise at the bottom that pushes its way up, and then we start getting this nice darker green at the top. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water, and that turquoise, as it's gathered at the bottom, does look like it's a little gray leaning in some of its tone, which is strange. I just think that's the way it's appearing here to me, but it's definitely gathering on the bottom. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I go straight to the lowercase h that has a lot of blowout, and that part makes me not want to use it in a note-taking situation if I'm going to highlight. Water is reactivating and lifting this off the page. Now, not all of it, but we're not seeing the turquoise there. We're still seeing the green. We do see in the upper circle where it's starting to get a bit whiter, but not all of this is really coming free. Pen flush is starting to create a white line around the edge of where that drop was. It's really breaking the ink up and making me say that pen flush is all that you're going to need to get this out of your pen. The 1/3 bleach solution, even though you're not going to need it, does completely obliterate it off the page. As far as viscosity or flow, for the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. The Atramentis Emerald Green has a viscosity of 2.18, making it normal. Low side of normal, but normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples. Now for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. The Atramentis Emerald Green has an average dry time of 14 seconds, making it again on the low side of normal, but still normal. Instead of finding inks that look like the Atramentis Emerald Green, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted a nice orange and went with Noodler's Apache Sunset. The second writing sample is done on Life, Apache, and Franklin Christoph paper. Here we're looking at Life paper. Now we get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen. It does have shading. It's harder to see, like on the D is much darker than the A, and the T is much darker than the A. The E is darker than the M and the N next to it, so it is there. It's much more subtle in its shifting from mid to dark tones. Extra fine is lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, some very nice shading going on. The starts light and gets dark, brown starts dark and gets light. Over starts light and gets dark. The light to dark, lazy dark to light. 7 seconds to dry. Now medium is darker than the extra fine. Little bit darker even than the stub. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, and it does still give us some shading spots. Like the K in quick is much darker than the word. Over starts a little bit lighter and works its way very dark at the E. The starts a little lighter and gets darker. So we're just shifting from mid to darks instead of lights to darks. 12 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show us some color variation when you look far left to far right, and it is there in the writing. Apache notebooks. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and it does offer some nice shading. Look at the same thing going on with Atramentis. Dark to light to dark. Medium is slightly lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and some very nice shading. Looking at quick, dark to light to dark. Brown goes dark to light. So nice. 6 seconds to dry. Medium is much darker than the extra fine, quite a bit darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and it still does give us some shading spots. Not a whole lot. More you have to find the very dark letters. The bottom of the Q is very dark. The I in quick and the K in quick very dark. Over starts lighter and gets very dark and stays that way. 8 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us color variation, and we do get it in the writing. And last up is Franklin Christoph paper. No bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, but it does offer some shading. Quick goes dark to light to dark. Brown goes dark to light. Fox goes light to dark, and 4 seconds to dry. Now medium is much darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. 6 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows us color variation, the medium shows us none, and that's what we got in the writing, and that is all that I have for the writing sample. So what do I think of the Atramentis Edgar Allan Poe Emerald Green? The color we get on the page is quite different than what we get on the swab. The swab doesn't show any color variation, but we get plenty of color variation in the writing, which I would still prefer the color variation in the writing over swab. It is a very interesting ink, but it does make me wonder why they choose the colors they do sometimes with their names. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? A medium flow, medium nib puts down a great tone with amazing amounts of shading. That's what you should go for with this. And if you know why they said emerald green for Edgar Allan Poe, please let me know in the comments, because I'm curious. I'm going to remind you that I'm here every day with a new ink review. Thanks for watching.